G'day Vegemites and welcome back to Awesome Animals TV. Thanks for joining us once again. At the moment we're in the Northern Territory. It's Mango Madness silly season, November, also known as the build up, and everything here is going full troppo, including all of the animals. So we're out tonight looking to see what's out and about. Let's go and see what we can find. So I'm just cruising around with the LED lenser on. I've got to tell you, these head torches are amazing, man. 300 looms, and I can actually spot eyes from a distance, and there's some over there. Let's go and have a look. This time of the year, coming up to the wet season, the green frogs really come out, and they're croaking all the time, calling out to each other, calling for mates. And it's unbelievable where you can find them. You can find them in your toilet, found them in downpipes, you can find them in your bathroom. Wherever there's a little bit of moisture, they're always around. Awesome, check out these beauties. The green tree frog. One of my favourite frogs. When I was a kid I used to have these, and they were really little when I got them, and then they matured to this age, and much to my parents' horror, once they matured, they started croaking really loud in my bedroom. But these frogs actually live for up to 20 years, over 20 years. And I reckon that the smaller guy here is a male and the bigger one is a female. Once again, like most of the amphibians, the female is the larger one. The male's a bit smaller, and when they mate, the male sits on the female on her back. Now they're really cool frogs, beautiful green colour, awesome camouflage, and the male would have been calling, and found his female. So this time of year, they're out, they're everywhere. It's one of the most widely distributed of one of the largest species of frogs in Australia. They're found in Northern Territory, they're found in WA, up in the tropics. They go into Queensland, right down the east coast, even down into New South Wales. And they live with people all the time. You can find them in your toilets. Some tourists come over here and they go up to the tropics and they flush the toilet, and much to their horror they see all these little legs come out and the big frog plops into the toilet. But they are simply spectacular. Beautiful green colour, probably one of my favourite colours. And once again, these guys have a horizontal pupil. They're primarily nocturnal. The daytime they'll live in downpipes. If they're in habitat near your house, they'll live in downpipes. They'll live in your toilet or bathroom, anywhere it's a little bit moist. But it's amazing that they can actually stay in a downpipe that's heated by the sun, and it can be like 30-35 degrees and humid as, and they can just live in there quite easily. They get beautiful orange colours on the insides of their legs. They get to about 11 or 12 centimetres. His cousin, the white-lipped tree frog, which is found over in Cairns and Queensland, they get to 14 centimetres. They're a really big frog. And some species of the green tree frogs have actually been observed hanging out near bat caves, and as the bats fly out, as the sun sets in the twilight, they've been observed actually catching microbats and swallowing them whole. They get big enough to eat mice, they'll eat geckos, they'll probably eat other frogs, generally amphibians and reptiles. They don't mind eating their nieces and nephews. So you can see these guys have got big subdigital lamella, which are the suction pads on their feet. They've got webbed back feet. They've got 5 on the back, 4 on the front, like most of our other frogs and toads. So in this area there's actually over 33 described species of amphibians here in up near Darwin in the Northern Territory. And these ones are probably one of my favourite, the green frogs. Amazing. Lots of people have them as pets, and once again they can live over 20 years. When the green tree frog mates in November, December, the female will lay up to 2,000 eggs, which will float on top of the water. So when these frogs call out, they're really loud. They're like a brah, 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 brah. Really loud noise. And if they're in a downpipe in particular, it just amplifies. And I know people in Cairns and other places in Darwin, when it starts raining, sometimes they have to go out and catch all of the frogs and take them away so they can actually get some sleep because they're that noisy. In the mating season in November, December, the female can lay up to 2,000 eggs, and she'll make a bubble nest which will float on top of the water, and they can reach 12 centimetres when they're full grown, and that might take over 20 years. Pretty awesome frogs. Let's go and see what else we can find. An interesting thing about the green tree frogs is when the males start croaking, they actually are a bit like roosters. You'll have a male over there 50 metres away, he'll start croaking, then another one over in his territory, he'll start croaking, and then there'll be another one. And they just all sort of compete with each other and try and get the female's attention. The frogs that have the longest, deepest and loudest croaks are the ones that attract the females as a mate. Frogs will eat anything they can swallow, and if they don't fit in their mouth, they're not shy about using their hands to shovel it in. This green tree frog's just caught a king cricket, and what they do is they shovel it into their mouths, hold it there, and then they'll use their eyes. They'll pull their eyes in, and that will crush their prey item inside their mouths, because a lot of times they're catching things that will bite the inside of their mouth, and they'll grab them, crunch down on them, pull their eyes in, and they'll use a plate on the inside of the top ridge of their mouth to crush that prey item. Large specimens of these frogs have been observed eating bats, microbats, from out the front of bat caves at dusk as they fly out. There he goes down the hatch. Now you watch, he should pull his eyes right in. Come on, Kermit, you got it. There we go. It's really quite amazing what they can eat. They'll take on big spiders and even centipedes. And a lot of those other arthropods have super sharp fangs and venom. But the old green tree frog just smashes them down. A lot of our frogs have the amazing ability to change colours. When they're sitting on super green leaves, they turn super green, and if they're sitting on dirt where it's brown, they'll become brown as well. So they have this amazing ability to just camouflage into their natural environment, and that's what makes them stealth hunters. Another amazing thing about the green tree frogs and other tree frogs is they have the suction pads on the end of their fingers, the subdigital lamella, and what they are is millions and millions of microscopic little hairs that stick to everything. These frogs can climb branches, trees, leaves, even glass and plastic. They're amazing. They're like little green ninjas. See you, Kermit. Check him out. He's an awesome specimen. He's probably about 4 foot long, juvenile. And he'd be out cruising around at night time now, hunting, looking for reptiles and frogs. It's the hotter part of the season and it's hot at night time, and a lot of our venomous snakes will become nocturnal over the summer months. And then of course after the rains we get a lot of frogs coming out as well. So these guys are primarily reptile specialists, but they'll also eat frogs as well. They love lizards and they'll eat other snakes. He's also quite happy to eat other venomous snakes like brown snakes, particularly the western brown out here. But this bloke is actually from the black snake family, Pseudechis australis. Now brown snakes are from the Pseudechis family, meaning false cobra. But this guy's venom, it has more hemotoxins rather than the neurotoxins that a lot of the brown snake family has. So he's from the black snake family, even though his name's the king brown. Now he's Australia's second largest species of venomous snake, growing to 2.5 metres. He's second only to the coastal taipan in size, and he's quite a common snake. But believe it or not, they're quite placid and they're very reluctant to bite, unless unfortunately you'd have one in a confined space where it can't move away from you. That's when they'll become more defensive and more bitey. But as you can see, he's just cruising around doing his own thing. He's not worried about trying to bite me or chase me or attack me or any of this sort of stuff. He's just cruising around out here in the bush doing his thing, and I'm a couple metres away from him and I have absolutely nothing to worry about. What a beauty. The king brown. Another name for him also is the MULGA snake, because he lives in the MULGA country, and we're actually surrounded by mulga trees right now, which is a species of acacia. There's another species as well, which is Pseudechis butleri. Haha, awesome stuff. King brown snake, the mulga. Let's go and see what else we can find. G'day Vegemites. Welcome back to Awesome Animals TV. Now, sometimes we do bush tucker talks, sometimes we do tropical fruits, which I love. This is really an amazing species right here. This is something you don't get to see very often. And this is actually a dragon fruit flower. Have a look at that. What a spectacular specimen. Now, they're a climbing succulent. They're very similar to cactus. They're an old world plant. A lot of the cactuses and a lot of the succulents as well, once a year they'll actually flower, and a lot of the times they'll only open their flowers at night time, and then the pollination process will happen. And that pollination process, this flower can be pollinated by microbats. It can be also pollinated by little mammals, insects, and even the wind. So if we look inside this flower just here, you can see here all of the pollen here, all of that pollen, which is basically like sperm. And then we also have the little flower here. So what happens is that pollen will be transferred over to this little flower within inside the flower, and that will travel down, and inside the back of this flower is the ovary, and then once that pollen travels down, it will fertilize the ovary, and eventually this flower will close up, and eventually it'll turn into a really awesome dragon fruit, which is a delicious tropical fruit from Australasia. But what's really cool about them is they only actually flower for maybe 1-2 nights maximum, that these flowers will be open once a year. So this is a flower that's already been successfully pollinated, and you can see it's pulling back in to the start of the little baby dragon fruit there hanging off the main stem. Just wanted to share that with you because it's such a prehistoric looking beast of a flower. Let's go and see what else we can find. Have a look at this little guy. This is a Gilbert's dragon, and what he's doing is he's climbed up on the pole and he's just clamped on, and they'll actually sleep like that overnight. And the reason why he's come up a pole like this to sleep on something very slim is to keep away from snakes at night and other predators. So he'll just climb up onto a little thin branch, in this case it's a pole, and he'll sleep there for the night. The little Gilbert's dragons is from the agamid family. There's about 96 different species of them in Australia, and they range right up from the big 90 centimetre frill-necked lizards and also the big water dragons on the east coast, right down to little tiny earless dragons, which are only about 3 inches long. So little Gilbert dragon. And they're egg layers. When they mate this time of year, what the female will do is she'll dig a little hole, she'll lay her eggs in there and she'll cover it all over so no other predators can find her eggs. Cool. Oh, check out this beast down here, the giant frog from Australia. We're up in the Northern Territory and it's a hot night. We've come out to do a bit of spotlighting and we found this beastie here. Have a look at him, it's about the size, almost close to the size of my fist. Now the females will get to about 11 centimetres. Well, one of the largest species of frogs in Australia. And what he's doing is he's sitting out here waiting for any prey items to come along. Now this frog will eat any other frogs, anything that's smaller than it. Spiders, maybe even take on a centipede or two as well. So basically eat anything they can get their mouths over. Now they'll actually be underground for most of the year and then they will come up when it rains. While they're underground, they're in a little cocoon, a little tomb, and what they do is they excrete body juices and that will cover their body and seal it and stop them from drying out and dying. Then when the rain comes, they'll come to the top, have a big frog party and lay lots of eggs. And the tadpoles actually get to about 7 centimetres, so quite a big tadpole for a big frog, obviously. Now this one's a cream colour, they can be a dark brown as well, and they can even be green. So green colours with a bit of brown. They're a really cool looking frog. In the mating season, when these frogs call to each other, they sing, communicate. These ones make a real wah-wah, 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 wah-wah sound. So with frogs, the female is generally larger than the male and she produces all the eggs obviously. Male's smaller and when they mate the male will be on the back of the female. Sometimes they'll be joined for a long time and cruising around together or swimming together as well. So as you can see, it's quite a robust frog, like most semi-phosphorial frogs. Frogs that live or spend time underneath the ground. These guys don't really have the webbed feet or the big sticky pads that the tree frogs have. These guys have got more separate toes, claws and digging apparatus. You can see the giant frog or round frog is quite easily distinguished by the two big ridges on his back, the big eyes and the triangle shaped head. You can see why he's called the round frog. He's quite round, isn't he? Now behind the eye there you can see a flap of skin, a fold of skin, which is hanging over his eardrum. Frogs are quite vocal and they have quite good hearing, and that's how they communicate to each other. You can see his skin glistening there as well. Frogs have the amazing ability to breathe through their skin and they need to be moist all the time. That's why they're primarily nocturnal or always being around water. And if there is no water available, like this guy, you'll have to burrow under the ground and escape the sun and the heat. So the giant frog is mainly up around Darwin. He will go over to Queensland a little bit, in the Gulf area, south of the Gulf a little bit, and a little bit over to the NT-WA border as well. But only in Northern Australia, and most of our frogs are up here. So tonight's perfect night. Let's go and see if we can find some more. Oh look, there's a snake over there. Have a look, he's just cruising along. Whoa, that's cool. Have a look at that bad boy. Awesome, this is Stegonotus. This is a slatey grey. And he's primarily nocturnal. He comes out at night time looking around for frogs. They also eat lizard eggs, and they're a shiny snake. And they generally come out after the rains. Now the males grow up to 1.4 metres, which is pretty big. It's a pretty big snake. Females only get to about 1 metre in length. He's got a creamy underbelly and he's got a pink tongue. Now these snakes are primarily terrestrial, on the ground most of the time. They can climb, however. All snakes can climb, except for sea snakes and file snakes. They're semi-phosphorial, so what he does during the day is he'll go under logs, under rocks, under thick leaf litter, and it'll sleep during the day when it's hot, and they'll come out at night time hunting around for the frogs. Now they also actually eat lizard eggs, which is interesting. So with that forked tongue, you can pick up the scent, and he'll cruise around and he'll find where the lizards have laid their eggs. Now there's a Gilbert's dragon up here, which is one of the agamas, and they lay clutches of 7 to 8 eggs, and this snake will source them out and eat them. I've also seen videos of these snakes actually trying to eat centipedes, which is really interesting because there's not many snakes in Australia that eat arthropods. He's a fairly common snake in the Northern Territory and also over in parts of Queensland. You have to be very careful because they look like Cryptophis, which is the eastern small-eyed snake, and the northern small-eyed snake, which also come out at night time. They're highly venomous and they look very similar to the slatey grey, and they have this beautiful shiny colour to them. They have a little bit more of a red tinge on the venter scales, but they only grow to 50 centimetres, whereas this guy will grow to 1.4 and a female will grow to about 1 metre. So if it's over 70-80 centimetres, more than likely it's going to be a slatey grey. The slatey grey's distribution is around Darwin, right across the Gove. It's not found through the Gulf at all. It's found up Cape York Peninsula. The eastern small-eyed snake is found pretty much very close to Cairns, right down the east coast, right through New South Wales, and even just over the border into Victoria. Alright, have a look at these naughty little guys. Oh hello, there's a beetle on my shoulder. Have a look at these. Couple of cane toads. Buffo. Woo. Now the cane toad is an introduced species to Australia, and they've been here for 83 years. Whoa. Now they're from South America and they've been introduced to lots of other countries. They're an invasive species, and you can see this guy here, he's puffing himself right up, making himself look big, and also what that does is makes it very hard for snakes and other predators to swallow him. So 83 years, 3,000 of them were introduced or released up in Gordonvale up near Cairns, and they've spread right across northern Australia and as far down as Lake Macquarie in New South Wales. It actually only took them 5 years to travel from Cairns, about 2,000 k's south, down to Brisbane. So they're highly adaptable. They can live in temperatures anywhere from 5 degrees up to 40 degrees, and they're a tough amphibian, super tough. I've found these guys in the middle of the day, stinking hot sun, 35 degrees, and they're sitting under a piece of tin, so they can definitely handle those extreme temperatures. So the cane toads basically eat anything that moves. Unfortunately, they've had massive amounts of devastation on our native wildlife species, particularly quolls that eat amphibians, lots of different types of snakes as well, and other reptiles, particularly monitor lizards and other amphibian eating reptiles as well. There's one species of snake called the freshwater keelback that can eat these guys, which is immune to their venom. Now they do have a gland on the back of the head here, and what he can do is, if I try to swallow this toad or your dog tries to swallow it, he'll excrete that toxin, and it's a type of neurotoxin. It'll cause a lot of frothing. If your dog's been frothing at the mouth quite a bit, he might have swallowed a cane toad. I have seen dogs also swallow them and regurgitate them, and they just froth at the mouth for a while, and then they come good after that. But these toads are definitely capable of killing even small crocodiles. Right, so you can see this one's here. It's a bit of a different pattern on the back there compared to this one's got little small. He's got little small bumps on him. That's a male, and the female has got larger patches, and they've got interesting looking belly patterns as well. And these guys, the female, they're generally around 10 centimetres or 15 centimetres. The largest one recorded was 23 centimetres, and I personally have caught one myself that I was driving down the driveway and I thought it was a coconut, and I dodged it, and it was actually a really big toad. So a toad that big is nearly tapping out at about 1 kilo. So big. It's a big amphibian. When they're big like that as well, they can quite easily eat small mammals like mice. They'll eat other small frogs as well. They'll eat geckos. They'll eat just about anything that moves. And he's not a great climber. You can see a little bit of a webbing at the back there on the feet, but once again, he's not a climber. He's not like a tree frog, and his fingers and toes are separate. So he's got 4 on the front there, and he's got the 5 on the back. So Buffo marinus was the scientific name for him. So the new scientific Latin name for the cane toad is Rhinella marina. These toads can handle salinity, about 15% salinity, and that enables them to live near the mangroves as well. So they'll live near the mangroves, near the beach. They're highly adaptable, as I said before, extreme temperatures. He's making a bit of a noise there. What's that, mate? Yeah, it's Awesome Animals TV. You're going on YouTube. That's cool. Yeah. So what we'll do is I'll let this female go now that we've seen her. There we go, see you later. Now, unfortunately, the tadpoles, the eggs, and the little toadlets and the toads are poisonous. So now the difference between a poison and a venom's usually injected through fangs, or it could be delivered through a spike, through a delivery system. Poison is ingested or absorbed, so they can be absorbed or ingested. Now, it's not true that if you touch a toad you get warts. That's not true. Also, I'm in no danger here. He's not going to fire out any venom or anything like that. However, if I did try and eat him, he would definitely start excreting some of that toxin, but they don't really shoot it out. They just sort of bleed it out of these glands here just behind his head. You can see that little puffy, almost looks like a jaw muscle, but he's all puffed up there like a balloon. The female cane toad can breed twice a year, and they can lay up to 35,000 eggs, which is pretty extreme. The eggs are poisonous as well. Native fish won't eat them. The tadpoles are also poisonous, and the eggs can hatch within 72 hours, believe it or not. And a large female toad can produce 70,000 tadpoles in a year. Now, a lot of people don't like them. They don't want them on their properties. If you do want to clear your land of cane toads, the most humane way to do it is bag them up and put them in the freezer. It's not really their fault that they're here. They've been here for a long time. But if you don't want them on your property and you want to get rid of them, that's the most humane way to do it. Pop them in the freezer. Now, those venom glands there on the back there, if a predator's trying to eat him, what he'll do is he'll start excreting some poison from there. Now, I'll just put the glasses on so it doesn't go in my eyes, but I'll just give you a little bit of a demonstration on what happens when the venom comes out. My glasses don't fog up because the humidity here at the moment is about 70%. Here we go. Give them a little bit of a squeeze here. You might see some of that venom come out. Oh, see, it actually shoots out like that. He's not real happy about that. So there we go. Tommy the toad, we'll release him back out in the bush here. There we go. Hope that didn't go on the lens. Alright, these are a bit bigger ones, aren't they? Woo! Thanks for joining us here on Awesome Animals TV. Keep it wild, and I'll catch you next time. Woo! There one goes. I'll let that one go, eh?